Hello and welcome to another exciting game of Lion Rampant. It's another battle report. We introduced two new players to the game, always spreading the word. Roger helped one along and I helped Chris along, who was the attacker coming from the right hand side as we look from our commentary position. And we drew sausages with mustard from the main book. It's a scenario, one of the great things about this game. I'll show that on the next slide. One thing we did introduce was the house rule that Roger came up with, which I rather like and would highly recommend, and that is the general is actually represented by a separate piece, which we use quite a sort of distinctive piece to do that, as you'll see in a minute. And he can join any unit, but he only moves at the end of the turn and can move up to 12 inches to change to another unit. He can't during the turn, he moves with the unit he's with. So the trade-off is that he has the usual risk to being killed if the unit he is with gets attacked or shot at. And the way we work this out is the usual risk is double one, but it seems to us that the more casualties taken, the more chance there should be of him dying. So what we do is, if there are 2 hits, he dies a 2 and a 3. If there's 3, there becomes a 2, 3 and 4. And when I say hits, you have to divide, don't forget, with Lion Rampant, the number of hits caused by the armour value, and we always give the general 4, although I'm quite tempted to try him just using the armour value of whoever he happens to be with. So if he's surrounded by lowly peasantry yeomen with armour value 2 and they get whacked for 8 hits, that's 4 casualties, and the general then dies on 2, 3, 4 or 5 on 2d6. If you're going to risk putting your general with a bunch of unarmoured peasants, there's more chance of him dying, but that's not what we did in this game. And of course, as luck would have it, when we rolled up for the leader skills, both players rolled a 7, which is commanding. And I'll read it from the book. Is each turn you may re-roll 1 failed move, attack or shoot test. No other tests within 12 inch of your leader's model, which is kind of the same thing again, except he would just be stuck with 1 unit. So we did roll them again, but no one seemed to like that. Stuck with the original roll. So anyway, we've got our house rule anyway, by default, with the added proviso he's got more risk of being killed if he gets caught, and he can move between units at the end of the turn. So there's the scenario, if you want to have a read of that. The basic thing is the attacker comes on and tries to burn as many buildings as possible. Now you do this by activating the unit. Now if you have 7 or more models in the unit, the fire starts in a roll of 8+, so a little bit less than a half chance. So it's not that easy. And if you have 6 or fewer models in the unit, the fire starts in a roll of 9+. Now remember, the more elite units, in this case the cavalry and the foot man-at-arms, the sort of nutty top-ranked samurai, they only start with 6. So the lower level units are actually better at starting fires, assuming they haven't taken too many casualties. So on we go. There's a rather nice setup. We're at Firestorm Games again in Cardiff. Roger's got those beautiful buildings, so we just put those 4 on. Some more scenery will appear in a second. And you'll see that when it appears in the game. A couple of woods, some rough terrain. But there's the basic scenario that you see. 4 buildings in the 4 corners. 1 army coming from the right, the attackers. Defenders coming on from the left. The figures are just on the table so we can see what we've got. We've given both sides the same army, and I'll run through that in a second as well. It's the usual 24 points, near enough. And the defender gets to place 1 unit in the village. So to start the game, he's gone with the shooters, the Teppu. Got to try and use these Japanese names. I've been painting these figures for long enough. Should use them by now, which is a good call because they don't need to move, they can just shoot things as they come in. The first decision, of course, with the general is, would you rather have your general with the shooting guys to make sure they shoot every turn, or would you rather have him coming on with the supporting units which need to get there as quickly as possible, because these guys on their own are very vulnerable. So in this case, as you can see, there's no general there, he's on the backboard. So to run through the armies, we have these sort of peasant types with their primitive hand weapons there. They're counting as bidoers, which ignore difficult terrain, things like that. They're pretty good at moving around. They need a 7 to shoot, so a little bit reluctant on that front, but a very useful unit. The thing to remember, they only start with 6, armour value of 2. If they get hit, they're pretty much gone. But they can evade, so I quite like those. Interesting unit. Moving on, where you see a block of 12 samurai with Yari. Not all the spears or Yaris have been put on yet. Still in the process of finishing this collection. And so they count as the foot sergeants. So they're sort of the reasonably good ones. Unfortunately, this hasn't come out very well. But they're the Hakimoto, I think they're called, the elite samurai. They count as basically foot man-at-arms. So they've got the level 4 armour, so they're really tough. They're very killy as well. They're a good unit to have on board. And you see the general with them. So clearly, the idea here is to have those in the middle with his 12-inch range, helping to move the other guys up. And really want to get the tough samurai in there early on. So these 12 guys here you see with Yari, the spears, or Ashigari, sort of the peasant type troops, the sort of rank and file. So we've used the profile for the foot yeoman. So it's still quite good. I mean, they're hitting on 5s when they attack and hitting on 4s when they're attacked. So more of a defensive unit. They can also form a Schiltron, which will boost their armour value by another 1. Because their armour value is only 2, so in Schiltron they're 3, but that means they can't then move. So this is a defensive formation really. But you can still attack with them. They've got 12 guys, it's useful starting fires. And also hitting on 5s, you can get 3 or 4 hits, usually enough to kill something. And there's 12 of them, so they're not too bad. And behind them you just about see what we call the mounted sergeants here. The cavalry. Now, because of Roger's excellent knowledge of the samurai, he spends a lot of time in Japan and knows these guys pretty well. They haven't been given the full mounted men-at-arms status with crouch lance and all that kind of thing. They count as mounted sergeants. So they're a bit more manoeuvrable, which fits. They're still quite keen to attack, but they're hitting on 4s instead of 3s when they charge. They still defend on 5s. The big difference is their armour value is 3 rather than 4. So 6 hits, for example, would kill 2 of these, but it's only kill 1 of the mounted men-at-arms. So it's more reflective of the samurai, except they haven't got the bows. So let's move quickly over to the attacker side. Both armies are the same. Makes for an interesting game. And at the top you see the mounted sergeants with their banners, their sashimonos. You see more than one design, because this army is also going to be used for other games, whereby those to be split into 2 units of 3 and represent the sort of different tribes coming together under the main leader, and look more like some of the historical battles that Roger's got in mind. For games such as To the Strongest, which I've been playing a lot of lately, highly recommend. Have a tournament coming up next month, the World Championships, and I will be catching up with my backlog of battle reports there, of how I developed my army for it and how the tournament goes. And just below them you see, back to this battle, you see 12 foot samurai, which we're counting as the sergeants. Oops, yes, that's right, yes. And here's the sort of centre of the attacker's army. The right edge of the picture is really sort of the middle of the table, with that green area being a wood on the attacker's right as they're coming in. So you can see the Biduas are heading towards that wood to make use of it. The shooters, or the Tepu, you see there 12 guys armed with a sort of arquebus. As you know, we're using them as crossbows in the rules. They're going to go straight down the middle of the main road, sort of Wild West OK Corral shootout style. So, and they're going to be backed up by the Hakimoto, the elite samurai. And I think the thinking here is the shooters will hopefully do some damage, and then the hard samurai will go marching in and mop up. You have to remember though, in this game, you're not allowed to put units within 3 inches of each other. It's part of the rules of the game. It does cause some restrictions, and especially in a game like this, you have to deploy within so many inches of the edge, and you can't quite get them all on as you might wish to. So the rules for coherence are you stay within 3 inches of the leader, so you can stretch them out like this, just about. You don't have to put them in clumps. And both sides have 6 units. You've seen the cavalry at the top, as you just see top left, samurai, foot or sergeants, then the Biduas, the elite samurai at the back, the foot man at arms. You've got the shooters, the Tepu, And to the right, you see on the next slide, is where the 6th unit is, the Ashigari. This angle looks slightly strange. As I said, I'm in the middle of the table, so I've shot this to the right, and I've been given these Ashigari to look after, to keep me in the game, as it were. But the general is coming with them, which does stick him out on the edge a bit. And I can see, I think the tactic is to use me as cannon fodder, to guarantee my guys move in, go straight to the village, take on everything while the rest of the army comes up. So, thanks for that, Chris. I guess I get to be the hero. Maybe a dead one, we'll see how it goes. So, the game gets started, and my Ashigari dutifully come marching up this edge, moving 8. They're a bit quicker. And the general there as well. I can't remember if I needed the reroll. I think they're just keen to get stuck in. And at the top end of the table, you can see those shooters, the Teppo guys, going straight down the middle. I think they're already into range, but they're just going to go for it. Backed up by, of course, by their mates, the so-called elite samurai, who only roll a 3. And even the mounted, well, 5's all they need to move, actually. But they decided they don't want to do that. And they've left everyone hanging out. Defenders decide to bring up some Bidowas rather than just go with the shooters, and of course they've decided they're not ready just yet, still fiddling about getting their bits together. Turn 2, and my glorious Ashigaru. Apparently it's Ashigaru, not Ashigari, which is another Welsh way of saying it. Anyway, we're flying up this flank, whether the rest of the army wants to join in or not. And sure enough, at the top, the cavalry have moved around, so that's good to see something happening. And at 3 then, these samurai have now decided they're not interested. So the flanks are moving up, but not much else. Of course, with Chris boldly moving his shooters up into shooting range, the guys in the village decide to open up, only they're not quite ready yet. They roll a 3. They need a 7 to shoot, so frustrating things with Lion Rampant. They're still getting their weapons loaded and ready to go. So my guys have now just about reached the village. We're almost within setting fire to a building range. You have to be adjacent at the start of your turn. So, looks like it's down to me at the moment. Now, rather boldly, Chris is moving the shooters even nearer into short range. At long range, I think they're hitting on 5s and 6s. At short range, 4 5s and 6s. He hasn't played the game a lot, but let me tell you, 12 guys hitting on 4 5s or 6s, they're really looking at an average of 6 hits. With an armour of 2, that's killing 3 straight away. So it's a gutsy call. You see the general is with my Ashigaru, and what he's done there is place it right on the corner of that unit, so that it can hopefully give its little command bonus, because you've got the 12-inch range, don't forget, to make sure the shooters at least have a better chance of shooting. So there you see Roger with our 2 young newbies, and the cavalry on the far end are going to finally move up. Something's happening. There's an overview of the battle board there. I haven't shown any of the defenders' moves yet because, of course, with the failed shooting, they haven't made any. So the relief is still a long way behind. Oh, the 2 random figures you see in the village are just a couple of peasant women I painted up and put in for decoration, so I hope they're not confusing. Okay, see them again there. The young ladies, my guys, give them a little bit of an incentive. Now, at the top of the table, you notice the Bidowas are into the wood, and the Hakimoto have moved up. The cavalry are coming round, so the attackers are actually getting some movement going on here. So the shooters again need a 7 to shoot, and they've got a 6 this time. So I guess having the general in the village would have been the way to do it and get the rerolls. So again, they don't shoot. But Chris is attacking. The brave guys, they've certainly had their weapons ready. They've shot. And as you can see, they've killed 4. So some devastating shooting there. Must have been at least 8 hits. Quick courage test for these guys. So you get 8 rolled. Take away the 4 casualties. Yep, there's still 8 left. And then you compare that with their profile, which I've got in front of me here. And their bravery's 4+, so he's just made it. They're going to stay, and they can shoot next turn if they can. Meanwhile, you see they're measuring out the distances of 12 inches from the general to see how many units he can get in. We've got a 12-inch ruler there. Oh, I think they're just out. I remember there's been discussion about it. And on the far side, you see, I think it's actually the foot guys are coming in first, and the cavalry is still at the top corner. I get small pictures to work on these recordings. You've got a better view than I have at the moment. But you've seen how many turns to get them to try and burn that building at the top. Well, of course, Mashi Gary are all set to burn this one. I need to roll that 8 when I get a chance to activate. And again, it's the Blinky and Hakimoto letting us down. Oh, that's why we're measuring there. Are they within 12 or not? I think you see the dice on the right-hand edge there, which show that I don't think they activated anyway. You'll also notice, though, at the end of the turn, Chris has elected to desert Mashi Garu and put the general now with the shooters, who are about to be shot at. So Roger and I were both sort of saying, are you sure you want to do this? They are in shooting range, but he's determined to get those shots, that he would survive this round of shooting. I want to make sure he got his round of shooting off. Also, it's a much better spot for the general, because now everything's within 12 inches, apart from the cavalry right at the top. So it is more useful there, but this is where the risk rule starts to come in. I also see some defenders appearing in the top left, and also in the centre, those foot samurai are going to try and burn that building, while I'm going to hopefully have a crack at the building at the bottom. So activate to shoot, and they get a 6. Crossbowmen need a 7. So there you go. Fortune favours the bold. The shooters, the attackers are not going to get shot again this turn. Amazing. So my guys, we decide we're going to burn this village down, or at least the first building. Roll 5, use the general's leadership to re-roll and get 7. Needed. Now this is one of those situations where you think, if Chris had done the shooters first, that 7 would have been enough to shoot with. But as it is, both activations fail. The turn ends. Those shooters don't get to shoot, of course. It is a fun game. So again, the shooters attempt to shoot within the village, that is, the Teppo guys there, and they're on 8 this time, so yes, they are going to open up. And it's short range. They're hitting on 4, 5s and 6s. Now, they've still got more than 6, so they still roll 12 dice. 6 hits is average. Boom. 7. So, doesn't quite get the 4th one, but still, enough to kill 3. And also, we're doing our risk to general, so that means the general's going to die on a roll of 2 or 3, because there's 1 casualty done to his base. If it had been 8, then it would have been 2, 3 or 4. I think I described it slightly wrong at the beginning. We do 1 plus the number of hits, so there is more of a risk. And so to roll for the general, and of course a morale test for the shooters. Divide up by 2, they've taken 3 hits. So you can see, 3 dead shooters lying there. And the general rolled 3. Oh dear. So that the house rule of increasing the risk by 1. 3 rolled, general dead. I mean, that's really is crucial for the game, for getting that extra activation. It really is so powerful. But there you go. He's taking a straight bullet. I'm going to have to play the game without him. And of course the shooters rolled 3 on their morale. So 3 were killed. So that takes, so it's -3 basically for that. Roll 3, 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 or less, you are routed. So that's them gone. So a pretty devastating round of fire there from the defenders. Hey, it's left to Mashi Garu as always. So they're keen as mustard to get stuck in. So they've got their 11s, they've now moved up. They're in contact with the building. They can try and set fire to it next turn. The Hakimoto are going to bravely march down the middle. Their covering unit's gone, so they're going to be shot at next. As if that last round of firing wasn't bad enough. I think Chris's logic was they're going to do that twice. Yeah, we all know that can work out. And the cavalry, I can't remember if they've moved up or actually had a go at setting it on fire. Either way, 7 wouldn't have burnt it down. There's only 6 of them, he needs 9. They're not ideal for that job. And they, well, let's just check quickly on the armour. If you got the mounted sergeants, with their attack, they only hit on 5s and 6s. If they attack, they hit on 4, 5s and 6s. It's not quite the differential you get on their mounted men-at-arms, but still, you want them charging, not getting whacked. And they're not great for burning down buildings, but there we are, so it works out. And there's a sort of nice overview of the rather attractive battle board from our friends at Firestorm again, with Roger's very nice buildings there, which I think he got from Foreground, which really look the part. And you can see the brown areas are difficult terrain, some sort of paddy fields, and the green areas, obviously now we can see the trees, there, the woods. So the army on the left, the defenders, it's just not getting anywhere. I mean, the bidder was right over on the far left-hand side of the table. I haven't even reached the wood yet. So it's been a really good chance for Chris to just try and, you can see why he wants to attack quickly and get stuck in, because with everything going wrong, it's just as well there's no other defenders there. So defenders cavalry are going to try and help out. They got the general nearby. Roll double 1, don't activate. Reroll. Roll 4, don't activate. I think we need 5 to move, so not having any luck at all getting things moving. Just as well maybe, but there you go. So it's left to me, of course. The Ashigaru needs 8 to set the building on fire, and thank you very much. There's 8, so that's 1 down. I think we take the roofs off to show which ones are on fire. You also might notice one building had a tiled roof. I think Roger only had 3 buildings with him, and we borrowed one of Firestorm's, which isn't very Japanese, but that's the Western settlers' influence for you. There you can see at the top there, and the roof's off this one. That's now on fire. Hooray! 1 point to me anyway. The Ashigaru or yeomen start moving up. They need a 5 to move, so they're okay. I think they ignore the rough terrain as well, so they're going to... Hopefully something will get to the battle before it's all over. Now you'll notice that the shooters in the village have actually moved across. They've used their activation to move across so they can get shots in on my Ashigaru. He's determined to stop them getting across the next building, I think. Now, something to remember in Lion Rampant is that the facing doesn't matter on a unit, so actually could have placed those with a bit more experience at an angle in that bottom corner. As long as one can see, they all count as shooting, and that way could have shot the Hakimoto as they came in, or carried on shooting the Ashigaru. But this way brings them in charge range. So the Ashigaru, my brave lads, could actually have a go at taking those out. It's better than being shot, isn't it? And they're not very good in a melee. So we were sort of advised against that, but there you go. They also see the general is now in the village, and he's got some foot samurai, and he's going to try and chase off the guys who are by the red roofed building with the support of the cavalry above them. So you can actually double charge them. And the attackers are supported by the bidderers in the wood. So you want to be careful about getting in range of those, because they can shoot. So we're starting to build up a little bit of tension over there and some decisions to make. So of course my Ashigaru do charge, and being the good lads they are, roll the 7, and they dutifully go piling in. Both sides rolling 12 dice, hitting on 5s and 6s, so it's pretty even, apart from the fact the shooters have already taken quite a few casualties and my guys are fresh. Anyway, so I've rolled up 4 hits, so that equals 2 casualties. The defenders only managed 3 hits, which is only 1 casualty. So I actually win the melee, 2-1. My guys rally anyway, they're happy with that. Pass the leadership test. I think we should have done the shooters first, but anyway, my guys passed 7, only 1 casualty, 6, so that's fine. Those guys though roll 8. Now it's not just the 2 casualties taken this turn, it's the fact they've taken 6 since the beginning. So 8 minus 6 is 2, so they are now battered and have to move back 3 inches and have to rally before they can shoot again. So if I can follow those guys up, I can run them down, because if I can hit them while they're battered, they only hit on 6s. I think it's where the town centre was difficult terrain and they had to work out if I could reach them, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it actually looks like my guys tested twice here. Anyway, they passed twice, it doesn't matter. 6 minus the 1 is 5, that's good enough. So over to the top, and unfortunately I got this building in the way. I should have moved around and got a better photograph. Because I think what's happened now is the red samurai you can see, oh, it's going to be a better photograph. I'm going to charge in against those mounted guys which are trying to set fire to the building. I guess if it had come off, the game's at least a draw. So it's worth the gamble, but it does leave them very vulnerable. So you can see from here there must be one more turn. They're the foot samurai in red. So they're trying to get within 6, which would be their charge range. But whichever way he does it, it does leave them in range of the Bidowers to get a pot shot off. And I think you see the 7 next to the Bidowers means they've just fired. They are hitting on 5s and 6s. Have that lot, 6. Luckily they're the foot ones. And they've got armour 4, only lose 1. If that had been shooting on the mounted guys, it would have killed 2. So it's a good example there of the difference that extra pip of armour makes. M11, they shrug off the 1 casualty, they don't care. So Chris is again here trying to set the building on fire, at least get that draw guaranteed, but they are open to being charged. If they had charged their attack value before, they get 12 dice, they could have, you know, makes a big difference. Defending, they're only hitting on 5s. But there you go. I guess the guys who are charging are better at defending, so I suppose it's a bit of a trade-off. Okay, so the shooters in the town have rolled 9, so they haven't rallied, but they're not below 0 yet, so they just move back a bit further and remain battered. Meanwhile, the elite samurai with the swords out, the Hachimoto, they're going to go in and see what they can do. They've got the general there, they made the charge, they're going to be hitting on 3s. This could get ugly. Boom. So there are 9 hits. 9 hits. Against the mounted sergeants with their armour 3, that's 3 killed. There's half of them gone in one go. They've rolled 7 on the morale tests. I think that's what it's for. But anyway, they've lost the melee, but they passed their courage tests. So they're just going to move back half a move. I hope they can avoid those. I think looking at, they've only killed 1 in return. Armour value 4, hitting on 5s. That's all you can expect. They're in trouble. There's Roger giving out some helpful hints there. And you can see that cavalry just retreating to the right of the building with the red roof. With some nutty Hachimotos behind them. I guess at least it gives the Bidowers a shot. So this is where I had the dilemma now, because on the one hand, my Ashiguru could just move across and try and set fire to another building, but with those shooters sitting there battered, I could dive in, whack them, hitting back on 6s. They both got armour 2. I could wipe those out and get rid of them. Then I'm open to a charge by his Ashigaru. Will be fresh coming in. I think I've slight advantage for defending. And it's so painful sometimes because these guys need a 5 to move, and that 5 would have been enough. And they could have hidden around the back of this building and tried to set fire to it and go for the game. But 5's not enough to charge, so they are stuck there, hoping those shooters never rally and have another go next turn. And they did rally, unfortunately. And here comes some more Ashigaru, so I'm really getting outnumbered over here now. The Ashigaru shoot. I'm not sure he did roll enough to rally if it was that dice we saw, the 9. Because 9 minus the 6 casualties he's taken is 3. And Crossbow need 4, I think. I've checked that in the book. But anyway, they were rallied, and they did shoot. They're hitting on 4, 5s and 6s. They only roll 6 dice because they're half strength. But that's still 4 hits. Enough to do another 2 damage to me. And my brave boys decided they've had enough. Roll a 6. Failed the blinking morale test. They're not routed though, just battered. And nicely in range to be shot again. So, I know, sometimes you don't want to rally them. And these Bidowers are still trying to get into the game. And at the top you see the last units trying to catch up. So really, we've been fighting this whole battle against only a couple of the defenders' units. And still getting trounced. So my guys decide they do want to rally. You see the battered marker coming off. Nice high roll there. I think on 4 casualties. Gave them 4, which does it by 1. It's excellent. They can now stand there and get shot to pieces. And the cavalry are going to front up with those foot guys over there. And we're going to see the difference really between mounted men-at-arms and mounted sergeants, because they're going to charge into a full unit. And Roger's really trying to say this probably isn't a great idea, but it's going to happen anyway, and we're going to see some action on the top end of the table. So he really wants these mounted samurai either to move out of the shooting range of the rallied shooters in the village, or turn and charge. Might not be a bad idea, only 6 dice though, or do something, but anyway, double 1. I really did miss that general. And he gets shot again. Just the one casualty this time. Unfortunately enough to break them, and they're really going now. I want to grab those peasants, the females there, take with me. Now Freddy wants to see just what cavalry can do, and he's trying to manoeuvre them to get a charge on the unit of foot sergeants. These are not heavy cavalry. That's going to be a tough battle for them. Both sides are going to be hitting on 4s and rolling 12 dice. And the foot guy's got the better armour, and there's more of them. So, sorry, they've got the same armour, but there's more of them. What we're trying to point out here as well, the Bidowers are going to shoot them where they are. So a little bit of manoeuvring, and quickly discovers that it's not a great idea. Oh, no, that's bollocks. So they activate to charge. We need a 5. They're quite keen to get stuck in. And we're going to see how a unit of 6 mounted sergeants fares while charging against a unit of 12 foot sergeants. They're both hitting on 4s, as I mentioned, but obviously there's more of those to die. There he goes. Quite a spectacular sight. Yeah. Okay, so there's the dice. So 6 hits for the defenders. The black dice, just enough to get those 2 hits or kills that are required, and 2 the other way. Sometimes Lion Rampant's not quite as random as you think it would be. With that number of dice, you do get freak throws either side, which really spoil your day, or make it, I guess. But generally, you're going to do what you expect. So 2 hits on each. You see the 2 hits. Testing morale. I think neither side was battered. So in the event of a draw, the attackers lose and they have to bounce off a half move, which leaves them a bit weakened and a bit vulnerable. Of course, they are now within 12 inches of the Bidowers. You take a shot from the wood, hitting on 4, 5s and 6s. Thank you very much. They've just killed 2 more. So those mounted samurai down to 2 now. I think the markers on the table show that they're also battered. So that didn't go so well. So my poor old Ashigaru have rallied yet again. And get shot at yet again. Lose 2 more, which means -6. Roll 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. Oh well, that's the end of me. Definitely the heroes though. Back to the centre of the battle, and you see on the right, the illustrious elite unit is finally getting a little bit nearer, and the mounted samurai, I think, are going to try and set that building on fire again. What else can they do? So the Bidowers have yet another shot. And boom, have that. There's another one dead. Mounted samurai didn't do so well up there. And they're going to fall back. Again, they've rolled 8. I think it's 3 dead, so it's 5. They're fine, but they're going backwards again. Meanwhile, the village is well occupied. And you will notice, though, the roof has gone. The red... We had to swap the buildings around because the red roof wouldn't come off. But anyway, the building on the top right has been set fire by the mounted samurai. Hooray! They've done something. Well, at least that means it's a draw, even though we're getting wiped out. The objective was to destroy the buildings. Not sure if it meant completely at all costs, but that's how we've done it. Yeah, so there's a close-up of that, and you see the Hashimoto are going to come in. So we've got the 2 elite units having a face-off in the middle of the village, the big showdown, and the generals there as well. And meanwhile, the mounted samurai side, they'd had enough. I think it's a double 1, and they've gone. But anyway, undaunted, these are now going to charge in. And it's worth charging in, of course, because, let's just double check it, yeah. The foot men at arms hitting at 3 on attack and 4 on defence, so you can do more hits. And if you think about it, if you're rolling 12 dice, on average, 6 hits on 4+, 8 hits on 3+. Which means you kill 2 instead of 1. So it goes. You can only see the defenders' dice there, but you can see the casualties as well. And sure enough, 2 defenders died, 1 attacker died. The attackers have won the melee. Ooh. Bad picture showing the same thing. Oh, that's right, showing the 5, sorry. The 5, the attackers, who by this stage have lost 3 guys. So they're down to 2. Even with the generals +1 makes it 3, though. And they are happy. So again, we see the difference the general makes. So having won the battle, the defenders have to back off. And they roll 5 as well, though. 5 minus 2 is 3. They're also hanging around. The flying hand you see there is bringing those Ashigaru up from the left to try and get to the knights or the mounted samurai that are hiding by that building. Bidders are still in the woods, of course. But they get there and make the charge. Bravely, the Ashigaru charge into the mounted samurai. No respecters of rank. And he managed to kill one, of course, because you need 3 dice of 5s and 6s, so they've hit. And double 1. Double 1 the courage test. They call them elite samurai, whatever. They didn't like being charged by a bunch of guys with spears. And they've gone. There's the victorious Ashigaru passing their morale test or courage test. Going to be shot at, but they've just killed some samurai. They're feeling very happy. This is just some faffing about brought about by that 3-inch rule about leaving the gaps and if you can move through the gaps because you need a wide enough gap, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this is that what we're trying to do is get the army across to get into the fight a bit, and they're all blocking each other because those shooters have been devastating in the middle of the village, but they are in the way now to stop the reinforcements coming through. These Victoria guys, they're going to be shot at. 6, yes they are. So some pretty lousy shooting when you consider they're hitting on 4s. There's not too much damage done on those. So actually consider the charge here with the Ashigaru, but I think we measured it, they either didn't quite reach, or because they're only hitting on 5s and they might not activate, decide to go with the general's Hashimoto again. Never mind Mr. General. He's going to get stuck in. Rolls a 3. Oh, not enough. Try again. Yep, 7. In they go. So we go, 6 dice each. Of course, the attackers are hitting on 3s, which makes all the difference, because that's 4 hits enough to kill one. And the defenders hitting on 4s, lousy roll, doesn't kill any. So they get knocked back, they've lost the melee, they're not battered, they're just falling back. So I guess they can counter-charge next turn. And the village is being occupied, all this fiddling about just to move the troops around, because there is still one strong unit at the top of the table, don't forget, which just beat off those mounted samurai, and it's got support from the Bidowas. So still a chance of them coming through to get this, again, the red tiled building, which has moved to the top left now. It's looking pretty well defended. There are quick overall things to the situation. So the foot sergeants are going to try and sort of sneak through the village, just working out where they can get to. Can they get past the guys? Again, you've got to stay outside 3 of the enemy as well. They're trying to move around with the Bidowas, who, of course, decide to do nothing. Not even shoot! And these guys are turning around to have another go. So they get charged again. These samurai really want to fight to the death. So again, as before, they do the 1 casualty. The other one doesn't break. The single guy could have charged, really, just as well. At least he'd be hitting on 3s then and could return the favour. But because those Bidowas got that double 1 and failed to activate, they didn't get to charge. And I guess shooting was a higher priority, or getting the full unit of Bidowas in. So those blasted shooters who've been devastating the whole game now have the general with them as well to make sure they activate. If you remember, they're the ones I should have been able to kill with my Ashigaru and just shot me to pieces. They've got round there, they've got the shot off, and they've done another hit or so on that, well, the last real combat unit. And they roll 4 on their courage tests. They've lost a few casualties, down to 0, and they've gone. So with only the Bidowas left and 1 samurai. That was the game. Oh, what a terrible blurry picture to finish on. It's a great game. Hang on, let's find a better picture. It's a better picture, and it also shows the game score. You can see we burnt 2 buildings, so by the scenario, it's a draw. We didn't play the boasts, though, and that might have swung things, especially with our general getting killed. And various other things happening, like lots of units being destroyed. So I need to look more into that. Boasts. I think the rule with the general went really well, and the risk was shown, and he did get killed. But the other general was certainly very useful in getting the stuff activated, and it showed the tactical decision of putting him with the shooters from the beginning, where they might have done even more damage. I would recommend you use that. Please put any comments below, whether you have tried it or what you think of it. Comments in general. I've also got Dragon Rampant rules now, and I'll be reviewing the new book and putting up some reports of that as soon as possible, plus those two the strongest reports I mentioned. So let's all go over here. Hope you're having happy gaming as well and enjoyed the video. More soon. Thanks for watching.